What's going on, Internet? Andrew Huang here again for LPX Studios. Today I'm going to give you a quick recap / review of the Apple Watch, which was finished announcing today by Apple at the press event. Today I'm going to go over 3 topics. Number 1, just quickly give you a recap of what they went over during the press event. And number 2, some of the stuff that they didn't mention during the press event that's available online. And finally, kind of give my 2 cents on it and give you a true opinion on the watch as a fellow smartwatch user. So let's begin by going over what they talked about. So number 1, what can the watch do? So right off the bat, they talked about the many different faces that you can put on it. So the different watch faces. So it can be standard clocks, it can be digital clocks, it can be informational, fitness, whatever. So it's going to be very customizable, which is a very good thing actually. Then they went over a couple of features like, how, being able to glance over your notifications by going ahead and swiping at them to get quick information, just like the current watches do. On top of that, they put a built-in speaker into the watch so you can go ahead and accept and make phone calls through the watch. Another thing they talked about was being able to assign the side buttons to be customizable, it seems, because what they showed during the event was when you press the side button, it can bring up your friends as a contact, so you can go ahead and quickly choose who you want to contact via call or text or whichever. Now, a cool thing about this is you can go ahead and also assign a contact that you have a special little swipe, so you can go ahead and draw a star or a different shape to associate that drawing with your contact. So let's say you want to draw a star for a good friend of yours. Once you have that preset, you go ahead and draw the star out and it'll make the phone call. Fitness features that they show, nothing new here. They pretty much went over what everyone else does. Heart rate tracker, it'll keep track of your workouts, calories burned, pedometer, etc, etc. Nothing new here on that end. Obviously, just like every other smartphone, you will be able to receive all notifications from your apps from your phone. Now, speaking of apps, apparently Apple's been working with a lot of companies to build proprietary apps for the watch. So they showed during the press conference Salesforce Wave, MLB at Bat, Twitter, and American Airlines, which apparently you can go ahead and store your boarding passes right onto the watch. And obviously, with the built-in mic, you're going to have Siri into it. So you can go ahead and access Siri through the watch. Now, going back to the button that they have on the side of the watch, you can go ahead and double press that button in order to bring up Apple Pay so you can quickly access your credit cards to go ahead and pay at the kiosk or a retail center. A few other apps that they brought up was Instagram and Uber, and they kind of showed off Uber by showing how you can go ahead and bring that up right on the watch and be able to bring up the map to locate the driver. Now, we can only assume that the watch has NFC built into it in order to make the Apple Pay work. On top of that, as well as hotel keys, because that's another thing that they promoted, where you can go ahead and check into a hotel and your key will be your watch, so you can go ahead and simply slip your watch over the hotel key door and your door will open. Cool little gimmick, I can say. Another cool function apparently has a wireless built into the watch, so you can go ahead and sync it up to, let's say, a garage door opener, so you can go ahead and use your watch to open your garage door. But aside from all the gimmicks, what did they go over about the technical data? What can the watch actually handle? Well, they didn't really go over much. So the only really main thing that they went over was battery life. And apparently it holds a charge of 18 hours on average. So it's not technically a full day at 24 hours, but 18 hours, I can kind of give them credit because it's pretty much a typical day that a person will be out and about anyway. So pretty much after battery life, they just quickly jumped to a couple video montages and then went on to explain the price structure. So this meaning the different models they're going to be able to buy from. So, right off the bat, at the bottom, an aluminum-based shell and a rubber-like band like the Gear S and some of the other watches out there. That's the sport version. And apparently it's going to come in 2 sizes, one at 38 millimeters and one at 42 millimeters. The prices, it's going to start at $349 and probably 99 cents. And then the 42 millimeter will be at $399. If these rubber bands aren't your cup of tea, you can go ahead and upgrade to the stainless steel versions, which will start at $549 and go all the way up to $1,049. And if you want to get the larger, that's for the 38 millimeter. If you want to get the larger 42 millimeter size, that starts at $599 and will go all upwards to $1,100. Not premium enough for you? Well, you can go ahead and get the Apple edition, which is going to be $10,000. I want you to sit on that for a second there. And one last final thing that they talked about was obviously the pre-order date and the release date. So you can go ahead and pre-order the watch from selected retailers as well as their site starting April 10th. And then it'll be available to the public on April 24th. Now those were just a quick highlight recap of what happened during the press event. But what about some of the stuff that they didn't mention during the press conference? Well, I went online and had to find out, because if you've seen my channel, I've done a lot of waterproof tests and wanted to see if the Apple Watch was water resistant. And obviously I shouldn't have doubted, because with these watches, you can be washing your hands and being out and about. It is water resistant. It is actually quite comparable on paper to the other devices out there, like the Samsung Gear S, Moto 360, and the LG G Watch R. Apparently it can be submerged under 3 feet of water for 30 minutes. That's what it's been graded towards. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that Apple has developed this watch to be at least on par in that sense. Now, another thing that's an unknown to us is actually the technical aspects of the watch. We don't know the resolution of the watch. We only know that it's a Retina display, but what resolution and what pixels per inch it has, we do not know quite yet. So while we know that the processor is the Apple S1, we don't know the processing speed, how many cores it has, how much RAM the system is using, and on top of that, what the built-in storage is going to be. For those, we're probably going to have to wait until later when the watch gets released, or for those tech reviewers who will get early access to the device. Now, while all that is good, Tim Cook at the end pretty much stated that the Apple Watch is the smartest watch out there. Essentially, he's stating that it's the most technological, most advanced smartwatch that you can get currently on the market. And me, and including a lot of the tech reviewers and the people who attended the event, would kind of disagree with that statement. There were 2 responses during the event that I actually really agreed with and resonated. So let me go ahead and read them back to you. Apple is really running into the same problem as Pebble and Android Wear. Sure, you can put apps on this thing, but you got a bigger screen, a better battery, and faster processor in your pocket. So much of this is just that thing you could do on your phone, you can do on your watch. I get that it's nice to have a thing on your wrist sometimes and not to fumble around your pockets, but I'm going to want to spend $350+ for the privilege every couple years. Now, those 2 statements are pretty much the same argument that I've been having with a lot of these smartwatches. My issue with these watches right now, in general, not just the Apple Watch, in general, a lot of them are trying to emulate the phone experience onto the watch. Pretty much they're trying to replace your phone in a sense. The main thing that's restricting it is the screen size. Now, I have the Samsung Gear S, and even though there's a lot of apps, there's a web browser available and everything, I use this thing at the minimum. And don't get me wrong, not just for the notifications, I do use several of the apps, but I don't sit there on my wrist to do my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram, to do everything I want on here. This watch has literally become the perfect companion device. Not a replacement, but a perfect companion device. And that's where I think a lot of these developers are dropping the ball. Now, I don't want to dive too deep into this conversation that way. I'll say that for a different topic. But I feel like Apple has sort of missed it. Now, during the conference, they failed to mention that you're going to have to be tethered to the phone in order to use all these devices, because the watch does not have a built-in SIM card, so you can use it as a standalone device like the Gear S. But I'm going to go ahead and give Apple a brownie point, because I feel like they executed the apps, at least, better than Android Wear did, and also better than what Samsung did. Because while Samsung went the whole functionality and companion route, their apps that came out for the primary applications, they were kind of half done. And they're not fully implemented quite yet. And Apple's technically trying to go the full way. Now, whether you really need that or not is a different topic altogether. But I'm going to go ahead and give Apple credit for at least making an attempt to make the apps usable on a wristwatch interface. Now, before I continue, I want to go ahead and quickly state that I think this comparison is not really a good comparison, because you're not buying these watches individually to use, because all the watches require a phone. So when you're shopping for these watches, you're going to have either an Android or an iPhone. So you're going to have one of the two. So it's not a question of the Apple Watch versus the Moto 360 or Android Wear or Tizen Wear. No, it's a matter of, first of all, which one do you have first, which device, and then you're going to go ahead and choose the watch. So there's not really a direct comparison, but my comparison here today is whether the Apple Watch is the most advanced. Now, during this entire presentation, other than the Apple Pay and the boarding pass thing, there was not one thing that really stuck out to me that made the Apple Watch look like it was the king of smartwatches. There was not one thing. And I believe a lot of you will agree on that. Even iPhone users, you gotta admit, the people who had the Android Wears and the Samsung Gear Watches and stuff, they've had nearly all the functions that Apple announced today. And during the press conference, they made it seem like it was a new thing. Because it really wasn't. Being able to get all your notifications, being able to answer calls, being able to use apps like maps and navigations and stuff, playing music, fitness trackers, it's already been done. It's nothing new. Having Wi-Fi on the watch is nothing new. And on top of that, my kicker was the battery is the worst out of all the competitors right now. Obviously, Pebble is the king because their watch barely uses any power and it can last forever. But their comparable Android Wear devices like the Moto 360 and the LG G Watch R and the Samsung Gear competitors like my Samsung Gear S, their batteries will last at least an entire day of 24 hours or more, or go upwards to 3 or 4 days. I stretched out my Gear S for 4.5 days. And I've tested it. Now, I don't want to make it seem like I'm bashing on this watch, because it is a solid watch. I'm gonna give it that much. It is a solid competitor. It's finally here. Now Apple users can finally enjoy a legitimate smartwatch. But I'm pretty much arguing against the statement that it's the most innovative and it's the best smartwatch out there. Because quite honestly, it's not. There's so many other competitors out there. There's so many other options that you can choose from. It's not the best. Because there's other watches, I can tell you right now, will do certain things better than the Apple Watch will. But let's say you're not coming from the device standpoint, like from the phones. You're gonna come from the other way around. So you're gonna decide on the watch first before you decide on the phone. Well, one thing you're gonna really want to consider is the price. And although I quickly went over the price in the beginning of this episode, it is quite staggering and borderline just scary of what Apple's trying to do. Now, the base watch, the display and the technological stuff inside the watch isn't changing between the $350 model and the $10,000 model. What you are paying for, it's the materials and the bands, and that's the price difference. So you're going to be paying for either the stainless steel and aluminum, and apparently stainless steel and aluminum is a $200 price difference, which is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. And on top of that, the bands justify you paying an additional upwards of $400 to $500. Now, I get that most Apple users are those who are more about the premium product, who will carry around like the Gucci's and the Chanel, and they're going to want the premium feel. That's fine. You're going to pay for it, but obviously you can afford it, so there's nothing against you. But for the everyday user, even the Sport Watch being priced at $349, I personally feel that's horrendously overpriced, especially when you compare it to its competitors. Now, many of you will probably argue with me on that because there's different types of people out there. I fully recognize that. Like I just said before, there's people out there who just want the brand name. They just want the premium feel. Well, if you have the money, like I said, go get it. There's nothing wrong with it. But I'm just trying to speak for the everyday user and the everyday person. Now, guys, at the end of the day, we're all different people. You guys have different devices. I use Samsung. You may use iOS. You may use a different phone. You may like Android Wear over Tizen. And you might like the Apple Watch over Tizen. Whichever. It's your own personal opinion. But my goal here today with this video is pretty much not to bash the Apple Watch. If it came out that way, I do apologize. But my goal here was to pretty much try and break that stereotype that Apple is not the innovative company anymore. I mean, I really hope that they would be, because I personally had the iPhone 3, the 3GS, 4, and 4S back when they first came out, but I left them quickly because I noticed that other companies were starting to be more innovative than they were. Now, this watch is a great watch for the iPhone. I have no arguments against that. But hopefully when you guys watch this video, it makes you kind of open your mind a little bit. Just because Apple released it, they weren't the first ones around. They're coming in literally over 2 years late in the game right now. That's how late they're coming out. So the watch, like for me during the entire press conference, I'm like, it better have that, it better have that, it better have that, because they waited so long to come out. But thankfully, they didn't omit any of that. Could they have done better? Yes, in my opinion, but Apple users have waited long enough for the watch. You're finally getting one, so you're probably going to be happy anyway. Well guys, that's all I have for you today, but I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any comments, feedback, or anything that I may have missed or you'd like to talk about, please go ahead and leave a comment down below. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and leave a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you liked or disliked this topic in general. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for more content, as well as to join the ever-growing community that we're growing here. And if I don't see you in the next video, I hope you at least enjoyed this one, but hopefully I'll see you guys in my next video. Take care.